There comes a time, somewhere after 50, when you realize home isn't just about where you live. It's about how you live. It's about who you're becoming and what you're ready to make space for. I'm Juli Ford, real estate expert and longtime wellness coach, and someone who's lived in a multi-generational home for the past decade while reinventing my life and my business. And this is Home After 50, a podcast about what it really means to find, shape, and come home to a new season, to a new home, to a new version of yourself. Whether you're thinking about upsizing, downsizing, moving in with family, or just asking bigger questions about what's next, you're in the right place. Each episode, I will share stories, insights, and real strategies for women redefining home and life on their own terms. Because after 50, home isn't just a place, it's a calling. And this time, it's yours. A typical Sunday morning for me usually involves extra coffee, lingering in my pajamas for as long as possible. But this past Sunday morning was a little bit different, and I want to share a little bit with you about it, a little glimpse behind the scenes, and I want to talk about why it happened, because I just think it's so interesting. It's so related to what I talk about all the time, multi-generational living. So this past Sunday morning, I was up at 4 a.m. and dressed and on the road at 5:30. A very unusual Sunday morning for me because I was on my way to a TV station to be a guest on a national television program to talk about multi-generational living. Now, I won't overinflate this. It was a 3-minute segment. They warned me it might be up to 6 minutes, but apparently they were running a little bit behind. So my segment was 3 minutes long, but it was impactful. And it was amazing to me because I was on this television show, invited to be on this television show to talk about multi-generational living because there's such an increased interest in it. Now, that didn't surprise me that there's such an increased interest in it. I knew that. I've been looking into it, talking about it, seeing my reels go viral on social media. I know how interested people are in it. What did surprise me was getting a message that they wanted me to come on national TV and talk with me about it. So here's the backstory. A couple of weeks ago, I woke up on a Saturday morning to an email from a producer, and they were asking me to come onto their show the following day and talk about multi-generational living. Now, my immediate response was to think it was a scam, which is funny. So I looked the person up, I did some research, I realized it was completely legitimate, and I responded to her right away, said I would love to, and then a little while later, they messaged me and said, oh, we're so sorry, we're not going to have time for it tomorrow, could you do it next weekend? And unfortunately, the next weekend, I was in Scotland on vacation, so I said, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm going to be out of the country. And they said, well, no worries, maybe the opportunity will come up again, and we'll reach back out to you. And I thought that I had missed the opportunity because I had imagined that I was like one of several people they reached out to talk to about multi-generational living. But I went to Scotland, I came back, and then last Thursday, they messaged me again and said, are you available this Sunday? And I said, yes, I am. And I would love to be there. And what I found out was that there was no one else. They weren't talking to anybody else about multi-generational living. This is fascinating to me because I just don't know how many people are out there publicly talking about this topic, but certainly it's trending, it's growing, and so many people are interested in it. So the backstory was that the host of the show follows me on Instagram, which I didn't know. And she just has a personal interest in multi-generational living, knew that it was a hot topic and wanted to talk about it on the show and invited me to come on. So that's what I did. So in preparation for the show, I really wanted to dig into what do the numbers look like? I've been thinking about this, talking about this, and looking at these numbers, but I hadn't really pulled it all together in a succinct way to really contextualize. Why is this happening? Why are so many people interested in multi-generational living? What really does the data say? What do the numbers say? What do the trends say? So I prepared for the show, and in doing that, wrote a blog post. And I just thought I'd come on today and just talk with you a little bit about what I learned because I think it's so fascinating. So, why is multi-generational living on the rise so quickly in the US? Now, I actually think this trend is happening all over the world. I don't have data on that, but I do know from the interactions that I have on social media that especially with some other accounts in the UK, there are lots of companies building granny flats, and they have a different name for it in the UK, but it's, it's what we think of as accessory dwelling units, granny flats, backyard bungalows, attached housing. But it is, I think, trending all over the world. But the numbers I have are for the United States. So today, nearly 1 in 5 Americans are living in a multi-generational home. It's about 60 million people. That's a lot. And last year, 17 to 18% of the homes that were purchased in the US in 2024 were multi-gen homes. Now, another interesting fact about that will not surprise you if you've listened to previous episodes of my podcast. And X buyers actually, of the homes that they bought last year, 21% of them were multi-gen homes. So Gen X, as I've said before, is really leading the way on purchasing multi-gen homes or transforming their homes into multi-gen homes because we're the sandwich generation, right? We've talked about this. We have aging parents, we have adult kids who can't afford to get houses. So this is another part of the trend. So let me just contextualize the growth of multi-generational living a little bit. Back in the 1970s, so about 50 years ago, 1975-ish, only about 1 in 11 or 12 homes were multi-gen homes in the US. So that number has shifted dramatically, 1 in 11 or 12 to 1 in 5. That's wild to me. So our aging population is another really big reason why we're considering multi-generational living. So just 60 years ago, only 1 in 11 Americans was over the age of 65. Today, nearly 1 in 5. By 2030, by the year 2030, 5 years from now, 1 in 5 Americans will be over age 65. The baby boomer generation is aging, and there are a lot of them. Now, the other thing that's really leading this multi-generational living trend is the cost of housing. Sometimes I hear talk and it makes me sad. I fortunately don't hear it in my own life, but I do see in the comments of a lot of my social media posts and other people's social media posts when the topic is housing costs, a lot of millennials feeling very misunderstood by people in the baby boomer generation. And I do even see some people in the baby boomer generation commenting kind of disparagingly about the lack of ability of millennials to buy homes. There seems to be, and I'm not overgeneralizing this, I don't want to stereotype this. My mom is, well, she's maybe a little older than the baby boomer generation, but she and I talked about this, and she's certainly not of this mindset. She understands what's happening with the housing market. But there are some older people who don't understand why younger people are having such a hard time becoming homeowners. And the reality is, I looked at these numbers, and the reality is in the last 50 years, home prices have grown nearly 10 times in the US, while incomes have only grown about 6 times. So picture this. In 1975, the average home cost about 3 times the average household income. Today, it's closer to 6 to 7 times. So the average house costs about 6 to 7 times the average salary today, where 50 years ago it was only about 3 times. Imagine that, how much more expensive home ownership has become. Nationally, median home prices have outpaced incomes 3 to 5 times since 1990. So this is driving the trend. We have an aging population that we need to figure out how to care for. Many people don't want to leave their homes. I mean, I think the number on people who want to age in place at home, and now whether that home be the home they've always lived in or maybe just a home with family that they've recreated as a multi-generational space, is more than 90%. I mean, most people will say they don't want to die in a nursing home. That's a common fear among older adults, and an understandable one. The other factor, of course, that comes into play is the cost of elder care. It's really high. especially if you're thinking of moving into assisted living, if you end up needing memory care. And of course, there are situations where that is absolutely the way to go. For some people, that's the best possible decision. For some people, that's the only decision. And for some people, they can afford that and that's their choice. And it's something that works out beautifully for them. But most people will tell you they want to live at home. They want to age at home. They want to die at home. And this trend of recreating, and I say recreating because of course, years ago, it was not that uncommon. Multi-generational living, I think, didn't even have a name probably back in maybe my great grandmother's time or even my grandmother's earlier years. But after World War II, finances changed, housing development changed, and the American dream of owning your own home and being independent and setting off and creating a home with your own family away from your original family became a really popular thing to do. And it became for a while an affordable thing to do. But we are definitely faced with a housing affordability crisis and also an aging and care crisis in the United States. And multi-generational homes are not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, I had a very interesting email that came in. So after my news segment this weekend, I had a huge surge in visits to my website. They were gracious on air to share my website so people could download my free multi-generational living guide. Almost 500 people downloaded it in the first day, and thousands of people visited my site. And I started getting emails from people just sharing their stories. This is so fascinating to me, and I actually love it. A lot of people, when they get my guide, they email me and tell me their stories. And sometimes it's a beautiful story of how multi-gen living is working for them or how they're planning it with their family. Sometimes it's a really challenging story of challenging finances or illnesses or families that don't get along. And it's fascinating to me that people just really want to be heard. You know, they want to know that there's somebody out there who wants to hear their story, that's interested in how they're trying to make things work. And they're really willing to share with me. And I love that because I learn so much about what people need and what people are going through. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. One interesting story that a gentleman shared with me is that he lives in a multi-generational home that they will be getting ready to sell in the next 4 or 5 years. And he didn't mention yet why he was preparing to sell. But he was asking me, what is the fact that I have this multi-gen home going to do to my resale value? And what do I have to think about when it comes time to market and sell it? And I told him it is my opinion, and I feel very confident about this, that multi-gen homes are only going to increase in demand in the years to come, and we do not have enough of them. There are some builders out there building what they call next-gen homes. As a matter of fact, I had another gentleman email me and share his floor plan, which was really fun to see. I'll probably share that on a blog or in an email coming up soon because a lot of people ask me for floor plan ideas. And he shared his exact layout of the floor plan that he and his wife and his son and daughter-in-law and the grandkids had moved into a brand new build, and it was a next-gen home specifically designed to have a suite for the grandparents. And I thought that was wonderful that we're seeing more of those homes being built, but it's still not enough. So the original gentleman who I was talking with about what he could expect when it came time to sell his home, I told him, I think your home will be in incredible demand. Of course, it depends on the market at the time and your specific market, but I only see the demand increasing. And side note, in case anyone else is wondering the same question, what I think is important is having an agent who knows how to tell a story of that home. You know, we're seeing more and more homes purchased because of social media. Instagram and TikTok are really leading the way selling homes these days. You might be surprised to hear that if you haven't seen it yet, but so many of us in the real estate world are meeting our clients through social media, and home buyers are seeing home tours and contacting agents and learning the stories of these homes and falling in love with these homes because of the marketing that's being done in a brand new way. So my recommendation, if you have a multi-gen home to sell, is that you work with an agent who can tell the story of that home and use social media in a really smart way to get as many eyes on your property as possible. I actually have a tool that I call my agent connector that I can share with you to connect you with an agent in your area that I've vetted through my network. If you're looking for an agent who knows how to market homes on social media and who can work with you in telling the story of your multi-gen home, or if you're looking to buy a multi-gen home, you can always reach me at my website or email me at julie@juliford.com and I can share that agent connector tool with you. So before we close out today's episode, I wanted to share two more things. One is why families are choosing multi-gen living. I talked about that a little bit from a data perspective, but I did want to just share some interesting information that I found from NAR, from the National Association of Realtors, from a survey they did last year in 2024. So of families choosing multi-gen living, cost savings was the number one reason. 36% of buyers cited affordability as their main driver in purchasing a multi-gen home. Caring for aging parents, 25%, and adult children moving back home, 21%. Very interesting. The other thing I wanted to share before we end today is, based on so many emails and messages on social media that I'm receiving, I have come to understand that one of the biggest challenges that families are facing as they're considering moving into a multi-gen home, or even if they were already living in a multi-gen home, are conversations that need to happen around living together. Conversations around finances, conversations around space, around privacy, around expectations, and the biggest one, conversations around sharing kitchen space and sharing meals. So I am working on creating a new tool. I'm calling it the Multi-Gen Family Conversation Toolkit that I am going to hopefully have available in the next couple of weeks. So if that's something that's interesting to you, or if you have questions about how to have important conversations with your family around multi-gen living, and you have ideas for me on what I should include in that toolkit, because I'm going to be including suggestions for conversations, not just the items you should talk about, the issues you should talk about, but how to do it. What are some ways that you can approach those conversations so that everyone can feel supported and heard? And because sometimes it's difficult, right? Sometimes those conversations can be a little bit challenging. So if you're facing any of those questions yourself, or you've successfully or maybe unsuccessfully dealt with some of those conversations and you'd like to share your story, please do email me at julie@juliford.com. Don't forget, no E on Julie. I would love to hear your story, and it would really help inform this tool that I'm creating for more families to help them be more successful with their multi-gen living journeys. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much for listening to Home After 50. If this episode resonated, I'd love it if you'd come hang out with me on Instagram. I am at It's Juli Ford, ITSJULIFORD. Just remember, no E on Julie. That's where I share ideas and behind the scenes about multi-generational living, real estate, business, and creating a next chapter that you love. And if you're curious about whether multi-generational living might be right for you, you can grab my free guide. It's in the link right in my Instagram bio. It's a simple way to get started imagining what's next. Because after 50, home isn't just a place, it's who we're becoming. See you next time.